Hello, Monica. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for hosting.
No worries. Do you want to introduce yourself and kind of explain what it is that you do?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Monica, and I practice both Chinese medicine and manual osteopathy. So most people know about acupuncture, but a lot of people don't really know what Chinese medicine is
Yeah.
or what I do with the osteopathy.
Yeah. So that's one of the things I was going to bring up first of all. Like, could you kind of explain exactly what osteopathy is and kind of the core tenets of Chinese medicine and stuff? Kind of delve into that a bit.
Yeah, for sure. So, osteopathy is kind of somewhere between physio and chiropractor,
Right.
with a little bit of massage thrown in. So, basically, we're trying to get the body back to a state of balance where it's able to move properly,
Right.
essentially. So, we use like mobilization and manipulation techniques on the joints, on the back, but also on the cranial bones and on the organs as
And the
well.
cranial, the
So
cranial bones
we,
being the bones in the skull.
yes,
Okay.
exactly.
Okay.
Did you know that they move?
I did. I did know that they move. Yeah. But
Yeah.
yeah. So this is something. Is it like to maintain overall well-being, to avoid illnesses, and kind of give like assist to longevity, or is this more something for if you have an illness to kind of treat it?
It's kind of both, we would always like prefer that our patients came to us before they needed
Yeah.
it, but unfortunately that's not really the case. Most of the time people come to the clinic and they've been in pain for 10 or 20 or 30 years,
Yeah.
or maybe they've had an acute injury and they're just suffering. So it's usually we're dealing with a specific complaint that the patient has, but
Right.
on occasion there are some patients, rarely, that will do like more of the maintenance stuff
Should we
too, which we prefer.
Yeah, so we're hoping to like kind of get to a place where more people kind of proactively look out for their health in that sort of way.
Absolutely, because we can prevent a lot of illness if we were
What
doing more of that
what kind
prevention.
of illnesses are prevented by have regularly seeing like a osteopathy practitioner? Would it help with stuff like arthritis? Is that stuff because it's bones, right?
Yeah, so it's not just bones. We actually deal with bones, but we also deal with all the soft tissues in the body and the connective tissue.
Okay.
And we're just making sure that all your joints are moving well, right? That you can move your neck in all ways, you can move your shoulders in all ways.
Yeah.
So we kind of look at like how good is the range of
Because
motion in our patients'
it sounds to me
bodies.
like something like probably most working men, you know, like they're building sites and laying roads. They should probably be doing this once a month or something at least, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's a really good demographic for me for sure. I have a lot of construction
Yeah,
workers and
yeah,
yeah,
because it
definitely.
really beats the body up, right? Working like grueling
Yeah,
jobs. So Chinese medicine then, what's
exactly.
because like I know like a lot of people probably think of Chinese medicine and they kind of consider it. It has this kind of stigma of like almost like woo woo science or something, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, and I actually don't blame people for thinking that, because the way that Chinese is interpreted, or sorry, Chinese medicine is interpreted into English,
Right,
it's absolute crap.
right,
So the problem being that when they took the Chinese texts and they interpreted it to English, it wasn't doctors of Chinese medicine that were doing that, so it was just lay people.
right.
So then they started to describe these words like chi as being, oh, it's just energy. And it's like, actually, that's not true. That's not really what Chinese medicine is. Like, yes, you could say it's energy, but it's a lot more than that, if that makes
Yeah, it
sense.
definitely makes sense. Like, because a lot of
Yeah.
great books that I'm into as well, like translations, and there's different translations and there's such yeah, there's something that can really be lost in translation for sure, especially when there's a specific points to be made, especially something like as practical as medicine. I think it's probably pretty important to get an accurate translation for sure. But
For sure.
yeah, so can you give some examples of like Chinese medicine then, like disambiguate it?
Yeah. So you can look at like the body as having all these circuits, right? We have our nervous system, which comes from our brain,
Yeah.
and that's a circuit, right? All the nerves going through our body. Then you have the heart, right? You have your arteries and veins and all of those structures. You could look at that as a circuit.
Yeah.
You could also look at your lymphatic system as a circuit. You could look at your muscle tissues as a circuit. In Chinese medicine, we call all these circuits meridians.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's the blood and the fluids flowing through the meridians that really gives that explanation of, oh, it's chi is energy.
Right.
Kind of, but it's also, you know, very like scientific at the same time.
Yeah, I mean,
does that make
that
sense?
does make sense, and I think as well, it's unfortunate that there's such a stigma around like looking at things in more than one way as well, because when you think about there's abstract concepts, even like the way that we deal with stuff with medicine in the Western sense, it just seems to be very rigid, kind of. It's just like the absence of illness is the definition of health or something in that industry,
Yeah.
which I think is definitely a bad approach, because if you looked after the body better, that's that holistic effect. I've seen studies where they gave patients paracetamol, and then there was mapping the sort of neurological link between physical pain and like emotional pain and stuff like that. And the people that had the placebo, obviously it didn't have an effect, but they showed sequences of emotive images to like the people on the study. And the people that were taking paracetamol each day, their neurological response to evocative images like, you know, a child on fire, stacks of money, stuff like this, was dampened down as well. So it's like there's a deeper connections between the mind and the body and stuff like that that are like founded. They're like it's legitimate science, but sort of
Yeah.
I don't think in public perception it kind of sounds crazy when people say these things sometimes.
I think it's because, like, that's a good topic that you pick, the scientific aspect of Chinese medicine. It's very hard to study
Right.
because we're not just giving someone one herb, right? Like, it would take me an hour and a half to 2 hours to sit down with you and talk to you about all your symptoms. And then I would put all those symptoms together and I would come up with a formula that is completely custom for you.
Yeah.
And that's actually the beauty of Chinese medicine, right? In a sense that it's not cookie cutter. And so how do you study a medicine that is not cookie cutter? It's very difficult.
Yeah.
Because I never give the same treatment twice.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. My sister, she studied like holistic therapies, and there's like aromatherapy. I think they might have touched on some of that sort of stuff. It's not what she's ended up doing with her life, but yeah, I just remember she used to speak about that, like individualized medicine and stuff like that. And I know like nowadays it's getting. Is it? Well, I suppose that's a question actually. Is this becoming more popular? Is this becoming less popular? How's that going?
It's becoming way more popular as people start to see results with it. And the great thing where I live in British Columbia, Canada, which you probably don't know where that is, but far, far away from you. We have our insurance company for like car crashes and stuff, right. ICBC. They've actually approved acupuncture as a therapy. So a lot of people have benefits through ICBC, and they have benefits through their insurance companies.
Yeah.
So it is becoming a lot more popular because people have these benefits. They're trying it out and realizing that it works really well.
Yeah. So do you think it's something, because is there sort of an apprehension from the government and medical systems to kind of embrace alternative? Would you say it's alternative medicine and alternative treatment?
Not in China. In China, I mean, they've been doing this medicine as their primary for thousands of years. Yeah. So in my mind, it is a primary medicine, but I can understand why people call it alternative. Yeah. I think the problem with it being accepted into mainstream goes back to that whole concept that it's very hard to study, and people want scientific research that's hard and fast showing results. And because of the problems with like how do you study acupuncture? How do you study Chinese
Yeah.
herbs? It's a very hard thing to study. So we go by the texts, and
Yeah.
I wouldn't do this if it wasn't working.
Of course. Of course.
I
I can't
Yeah,
count the amount of times that I've read like an article on the paper on the train or something, and it's sort of
yeah,
described some new herb or something that scientists have managed to isolate the exact compound in it that's beneficial, and it kind of vindicates um, ancient 1,000-year-old wisdom from Chinese medicine as well. So it's not
yeah.
so just like it just is its case that sort of the science has to catch up to the ancient wisdom that they'd figured out.
And I think that what you touched on there is they are researching a single herb,
Yeah,
but they have no idea how to take an entire formula that might have 14 different herbs in it that are customized. Okay, I might put this in here for Aston, but I'm not going to put it in for
yeah.
Michael. So it's like, well, how do you study those, because you don't even know what components are going to go into a medicine.
But I guess the way to study it really is to. How do you study that? How did like for one? How did you get into it, and what kind of how widely accessible is this to learn and actually become competent at?
I studied it right here in Nelson, BC, Canada, where I live.
Yeah,
There's a really good Chinese medicine school. We're pretty blessed in this town with a lot of different education
cool.
options for what people would call woo woo. So, yeah, we're pretty lucky here. And there is a lot of Chinese medicine schools all across Canada. I can't speak for the States and other places in the
Yeah,
world, but it is becoming very accessible to learn it.
yeah. And so,
Yeah.
did you was it were you inspired by a certain person, or was how did that happen?
Well, I started off as a personal trainer when I was a teenager, and then I became a massage therapist. And I could help patients, but I couldn't help them internally as much as I wanted to.
Right.
So then I went back to study Chinese medicine, and that was really nice because then I could treat people on the inside and on the outside. I could address their emotions and just really treat them more holistically.
Yeah.
And then I decided that I wanted more on like the musculoskeletal side, so I went back to school again to study the manual osteopathy.
Oh, cool.
So it's been a lot of school.
Yeah, a lot of school. How many
Yeah,
years?
yeah. So Chinese medicine school was like 4.5 years plus some board
Yeah.
exams. And then the osteopathy, luckily, I got like a lot of transfer credit for
Okay.
that from having my Chinese medicine. So that was another
Yeah.
year. And then yeah, the massage program and the personal training on top
Yeah.
of that.
So,
Yeah, so quite a lot.
in your head, what do you see as the main differences between the Western approach then and the Eastern approach? Is that basically what you've been describing so far already? That is individualized, that it encompasses more like your emotions, the whole being of a person. Is there more than that, or is that
Yeah, so I would say when I look at like the benefits of Western medicine, I would say in the sense of like acute injury, like someone's broken their leg and they need like that acute care. I think that
yeah,
that's where Western medicine really shines. Or if there's a surgery that's needed,
yeah,
I love referring my patients to their Western medicine doctor to get like blood work,
yeah,
just to rule out like comorbidities
yeah,
or other issues in their body. So I think diagnostically, they have some really good testing.
yeah,
However, I feel like a lot of Western medicine is focused around putting a band-aid on things and not treating things until they get really bad.
yeah,
So that's what I see is that, doctors won't treat like iron deficiency, for example. They won't treat until according to our medicine, until it's like pretty critically low,
yeah.
right? And if we had started to give that patient iron supplements earlier, then they wouldn't have had the illnesses that would have resulted from that, right?
Yeah, it does seem it's like in England we're blessed to have a national health service that's free at the point of use, but it's been like there's plenty of troubles going on in the UK with that at the moment with underfunding and whatnot. But I mean, even when it's fully funded, it's not really going out like a private healthcare plan might be for some people that are blessed enough to have that. It's not really going out and trying to tell people you need to get this amount of vitamin C. It waits until the problem comes and turns up as an illness, which which is
Yeah,
unfortunate. Yeah.
it is unfortunate.
What do you think's the biggest downsides to Western medicine and the Western approach to medicine and its dominance?
I would say, first of all, I don't know about the doctors where you live, but here they're so overloaded. The visits are so quick. I think it's like 8 minutes
Yeah.
per patient that they have to see, and there's just not enough Western doctors in our area,
Yeah.
so they get really tired and fatigued, and
Yeah.
and they're it's hard for them to see that many patients in a day
Yeah.
and have such quick visits and really to like have a good sense of what's going on for the
Yeah.
patient. And so when I compare it to Chinese medicine, where I'm spending like an hour and a half with the patient
Yeah.
in a visit, it's quite a
Yeah.
contrast. So I just feel like there's a lot of things that are missed because of okay, you can only talk about one thing. And trust me, like I have a lot of understanding for Western doctors
Yeah.
because I have a lot of friends who do
Yeah.
that. So I am fully like compassionate
Yeah.
toward
Yeah.
what they have to do for a living. But like I said, they'll just slap like a pharmaceutical at them and just try it out, right?
Yeah.
Like when they're kind of unsure whether that medicine is going to be beneficial for the patient, it's just kind of like, well, let's try this, let's try that
Yeah.
until we find something that works. But I feel like if we took more time to get to know the patient, we could give them the correct medicine
Yeah.
on that first visit.
Yeah, I've always wondered that myself when
Yeah.
I've been to the doctors and I've kind of, describe the symptoms and then they'll just kind of give me a prescription and I'm out the door within 10 minutes. And I just think, you haven't checked
Yeah.
anything. Like, how do you know it's not something worse? But I'm not like a hypochondriac that overthinks it and stuff. But I have just thought to myself,
Yeah.
like, how many times do you get it wrong just because you're fucking so busy and overworked? Which is,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And I mean, I can really see that because I did do a practicum in the Emerge,
yeah.
and I had to follow the Western medicine doctors around the hospital and just seeing what they have to put up with. And
Yeah.
like, I could feel my brain being fatigued, right? Like just from like keeping up to like all the different patients that were there at once.
Yeah.
And it's a hard job for sure.
Is there any efforts going on in Canada or that you know of, like across wherever else, to kind of integrate the stuff that you do in the healthcare system?
Oh, that was like a dream of mine when I was in school, was to have acupuncturists and Chinese medicine practitioners in the hospital here. I think I haven't heard of anything like that here.
Yeah.
But when I did do my practicum, the doctors did let me give acupuncture to some of the patients who were in like acute pain.
Okay.
And we played around with like giving them less morphine and less opioids.
Yeah.
And it worked so well. And in my mind, I really wanted to like make a study around that,
Yeah.
because if you can like take someone's pain down to the point where they don't need an opioid with acupuncture,
Yeah.
that's pretty
Yeah,
amazing.
for sure. I mean, I'd love
Yeah.
to see it if they could get to the point where I could go to see my GP and they would refer me over to someone like you, rather than just pump me full
Yeah.
of drugs. Yeah, because
Absolutely.
there's obviously,
Yeah.
I mean, we can speak to that as well. The like drugs, the pharmaceutical companies, the opioid epidemic in America and stuff like that. I mean, how bad is it in Canada?
It's terrible. And especially where I live, there's so much street drugs.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people injuring themselves. And, because I live in a ski town, like people crash on their skis or their mountain bikes,
Yeah.
and they're given like an opioid at the hospital,
Yeah.
like when they do their original injury, and then it's over. And I see a lot of patients, unfortunately, that are like not the demographic that you would expect from like a drug addict, right?
Yeah.
But it can happen to really anyone. Like it happens really quickly. And if you've ever been in pain, you can understand how easy it is to take that road.
Yeah.
Because the pain meds work so amazingly and it feels great to be on them. Like, I'm not going to deny that, right?
Yeah,
like
of
I've
course.
had some injuries and had to take morphine, and
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, they feel
Yeah,
great.
yeah,
So,
I've had it as well. I had a burst ulcer once, and when I was in hospital, they were giving me this liquid morphine, and it was pretty nice. Not gonna lie. Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. If you're on that, like, how long does it take for a person to get addicted to drugs? I don't know, but there's even programs on like Netflix or wherever it is. But there was a program called Dope Sick, and there was another one about like the Sackler family and the opioid epidemic. And it's just people that have hurt themselves mining, people that have even I think like doctors have got hooked on it and stuff like that. It's like absolutely rife
Yeah.
madness.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's like
It
one of the
is.
largest causes of death over there as well. So, which is wild, right? Like actual prescribed
Yeah.
medicine, you've got like an institution that's there to look after the health of the public, and the actual industry that's built around it, and the pharmaceutical industry are like in some way implicit, uh, responsible in some way for the main cause of people dying, which is I think radical, like wild, absolutely
It
unbelievable.
is.
Yeah,
It is unbelievable. And a lot of the drugs that are meant for surgeries or, severe pain cases in the hospital, like fentanyl,
yeah,
are ending up on the streets. And I did mention, like, my brother passed away of a fentanyl
yeah,
overdose a few years ago. And that was really hard, just to see him going through a life of drug addiction, even though we were raised in a very, like, Catholic prim and proper family,
yeah.
and we had good parents, and we had everything, and so it really showed me that this can happen to, like, no one's immune to it, really.
Yeah. Is that part of what drives you
Yeah.
doing what you do to like try and have a more positive impact and alternatives? Do you have a vision for like going forward that you have a certain ambition that you want to achieve with it?
I think right now, because there's so many people in this town who have drug addiction problems, when somebody comes to me and they tell me that they have that, I will give them free treatments. I'll work with their finances.
Hmm.
I'll do things like go for walks with them, or just be like an ear for them, right?
Yeah.
Because I think that so many people around here anyway, like, there's literally people just walking around the streets high on drugs all the time here.
Yeah.
So people kind of get um, just they don't pay attention to it anymore, and I think it's too
It's
bad
the same
that
where
these
I
people
am.
don't
Yeah.
get.
I live in
Yeah.
Luton in Bedfordshire in England. It's like 20 miles north of London. And yeah, it's pretty bad
Yeah.
here. Like, there's a lot of homelessness, a lot of drugs, but it becomes so normal. I think people become desensitized to the plight of the people when you see it every day, and they see it as an annoyance that they come up begging for change, or stuff like that. There's a lack of sort of sympathy and empathy, I think, when it just becomes so much of it that people are desensitized because of overexposure to it, which is a sad state of affairs for things to be. Because especially when you can sit there and describe it out there in Canada, and I'm here in the UK, and it seems to be like all over the place. Like, where did we go wrong?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's really tough.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, and my brother dealt with drug addiction for 20 something years. I mean, when it's your family member and you've seen how the whole family suffers,
yeah,
right? Like, my parents had a 20-year, they were in jail, for lack of better descriptions, with my brother, as in,
yeah,
they were supporting him. They had to deal with things like, my brother ripped them off for $6,000. He was constantly lying to them, constantly trying to get money out of them,
yeah,
and me as well. And so it was like a 20-year battle, not just for him, but for our entire family.
yeah, yeah.
And so it was very challenging.
It's tough. It really, the
Yeah.
way that people change so much as well. Like I had a dad who had a lot of drug problems, and we were raised on and off in America and stuff. He still lives out there now, and eventually it did cost him his family. It cost him my mum, and it cost him us kids. He's never met his grandson and stuff. You just like think from what someone can, from who they are to what they become when they get sucked into this stuff. It's like it really does. It's tragic, really. It's unfortunate. Yeah,
Yeah.
and then
Do you ever talk to your dad now?
Yeah, not so much. I thought he was dead most of last year, to be honest, because we still worry whether he's alive or dead or in jail or whatever, because he kind of spiraled down that path and never failed to get back off of it. But I found out because I spoke to his brother, who curates an art gallery out in California. I spoke to him, reached out and had like a FaceTime, and he said, "Oh no, he's fine. He's just yeah." So then it went from feeling worried to being a little bit angry, actually, if the truth be told, that he just hadn't bothered reaching out. And then
Yeah.
yeah, he FaceTimed me with his brother like a week later because he'd come over for the New Year celebration that my uncle was having. And since then, he reached out and sent one message on Facebook. I responded to it. He still hasn't read it. So, yeah, not so much, really, to be honest.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's tough. So when did he leave? Like, when was he not in your house
Well,
regularly? Like, how
first
over?
time, last time that I lived with him was in California, where, and that we came back in June or July 2001, just before September 11th happened. So that's the last time I've seen him in the flesh. So yeah,
Wow.
a long
That's a
time.
long
Yeah, a
time.
long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was hung
Wow.
up on that for a while, but then like I've got an 11-year-old son myself and stuff now. I don't really I see myself as the father more than the son, and I just kind of had to let that baggage go because otherwise it's just fucking dragged me down. It's not worth it in the
Yeah.
end. Yeah. So
Totally. What do you tell your son about his grandpa?
not
How do you explain
I
that?
don't know. I don't really explain it yet.
Yeah. Oh, you haven't?
Right now he's more interested in dinosaurs. You know, I show him a picture.
Oh,
Yeah, if I show him a
okay.
picture,
That's
yeah,
good.
if I show him a picture of his granddad going through the family album or something, there's like it hasn't happened yet where the awkward questions will come out, but I'm sure it will. And I'll just be honest with him. I think
Yeah.
just yeah,
You know, I have a 15-year-old, and I use my brother as an example. And I think that is super
yeah,
powerful because it's a different impact for him
yeah,
to like have lost an uncle that way. So I think it's a good like education piece, and I started to talk to my son about it pretty young.
yeah. Cool. I think it's probably
Yeah.
best to be because we weren't kind of hidden from it when it all happened, so it probably didn't we probably weren't exposed to it in the right way. Well, we definitely weren't.
Hmm.
But I mean, it's definitely done me favors to have learned that lesson early on. And you see other people in your like your peer group and stuff at like college and at school, and you just think like, you know, you're going down the wrong path. And if you've seen that happen personally, I think it definitely gives you an anchor to not kind of go away with the shore of the people that are going down that wrong path. So maybe that's something positive to take out of it all. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And being able to like be there for people who are going through the drug addiction themselves and trying to prevent it. Like right now I'm trying to get a film going with a bunch of pro athletes, and just having them discuss like how they healed from different injuries,
Yeah.
and how they did it without having any
Yeah.
painkillers, and their perspectives are actually really valuable. And I think just having some information to give to people where it's like this isn't the only way. Like I know it's the easy way
Yeah.
because I've been there. I've been on
Yeah.
morphine. I know it's the easy way, but it's certainly not the only
For
way.
sure, for sure. And you know,
Yeah.
it's not just the easiest way, but it's also like a massive money making way, right? These pharmaceutical companies are making a killing.
Yeah.
It's a weird thing that's happened, actually.
Absolutely.
That was one of the strange things about the pandemic, and I don't want to get too controversial or anything about the pandemic per se. But I mean, I never really realized how many people seem to like trust the drug companies until the whole COVID thing happened, you know?
Yeah.
Because I've never
Yeah.
trusted them in my life. I always thought that we kind of knew that they were this big, massive $100 billion industries that had been found guilty of all sorts and put medicines
Yeah.
out that have hurt people and that prescribe that there's overprescription and OxyContin pandemic. I just didn't really think that they would be able to get the amount of public trust that they did get during that
For sure.
period.
And our college, like we have a college or like a board, just like a Western doctor would or a
Yep.
chiropractor, right? And our college actually told us that we were not allowed to tell patients that a Chinese medicine formula could help them cure COVID. We weren't allowed to tell that to patients.
Yeah.
Even though in my heart and in my, like in all of my knowledge, I knew
Yeah.
that if I was to prescribe certain formulas,
Yeah.
it would really help my patients.
I mean,
But I wasn't allowed to say that.
there was a lot of that going on, wasn't there? I mean, there was kind of a policy
Yeah.
like not to treat it any other way other than the vaccine. Almost like no one was even trying to treat the symptoms. They weren't giving people vitamin D, or they weren't doing anything like that, which I think is a
Yeah.
shame. Like Canada went pretty heavy, right, on the laws over there.
Yeah. And I think part of the problem, and again, like I understand the college because they don't want Chinese medicine. Like, let's say that I was to prescribe a patient with COVID
Yeah,
a Chinese medicine formula, and then they got worse. Well, then that would be all over the
yeah, for
news,
sure.
and that would ruin like Chinese medicine acupuncture industry.
Yeah,
So I feel like our college was just trying to be protective of our industry. Like
yeah,
I understand why, but it's too bad
yeah.
that's the way it
Was
is.
it still considered though, like essential work? Were you still working throughout COVID with people?
We were allowed to see patients if the patient was acute, they said, right? Like if they couldn't wait to have care,
Yeah,
and then but they were very vague about that, right?
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah,
so I just like most of my patients like really need care.
yeah.
So I would ask them, like I'd be like, "Hey, do you really need care?" And they'd be like, "Yes." And I'm like, "Okay."
Yeah, because I just found it shocking
Yeah.
how much restrictions like in England over here. It was like you couldn't go to the gym or anything, and I was thinking like a gym
Yeah.
this is surely essential like for people's health. It's come on, man. Like not
Yeah.
just for the physical health, but then that has the impact on the mental well being. I was I couldn't believe how many things got shut down and what things were and weren't allowed. Kind of crazy. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, Canada, I kind of watched on a little bit like Australia as well, America. Like America, I suppose, was a mixed bag because you had certain places going worse than others, but it was kind of crazy. Canada seems to
Yeah.
be kind of a little bit crazy now. I don't know. From an outside perspective, it looks like there's like, I don't know, yeah, some crazy stuff going on there. And COVID was a big kind of indicator of how far the government is willing to like step in and kind of have that kind of control over a population. And you think like I've always thought of
Yeah.
Canada as sort of like this lovely place of like, a little bit of socialist policy in there, look after their people, have a healthcare system, kind of like juxtaposed right next to America, that's more like the crazy capitalist system. And then
Yeah.
yeah, it just doesn't seem to fit in with the idea of the word liberal when you've got people that are, almost like a totalitarian control sort of thing going on.
It's so true. Did you hear about the vaccine passport, or did you have that
Yeah,
in England?
they were talking about it, but we didn't. It never
Yeah.
happened over here. Is that actually a thing
Okay.
over there?
It was. It's not anymore. But when the shutdown kind of ended,
Hmm.
if you would get this little like QR code thing on your phone
Right.
if you got all your vaccines, and so if you wanted to go to a restaurant or the movie theater
Yeah.
or the rec center, they had to like scan your little QR code to make sure that you were vaccinated. And if you weren't, you weren't actually allowed to go into the
It's
places.
just crazy. Like, when did it flip that, like, liberals became like almost oppressive and that, like, the right wing was like more liberal? Do you know what I mean? With like people's actual freedoms. That's a really
Yeah.
weird one because, yeah, I mean, I can't understand anyone who doesn't feel like that kind of feels a little bit Orwellian. It's just kind of a bit creepy having to have like a COVID passport thing. If you've had your vaccines, you had your vaccine. If the vaccine works, then who cares if I'm vaccinated or not anyway? Surely I should be able to go wherever I want. You're vaccinated, you're safe, even if I'm infected, surely.
Yeah. Yeah, it was wild. I mean, Nelson is probably the unvaccinated capital of Canada, I want to
Yeah,
say, just because of the demographic of people that are
yeah.
here. So we probably had more unvaccinated individuals than anywhere
Yeah.
else.
Did you ever get
Yeah.
COVID?
I have had it twice,
And
yeah.
did you treat?
How about you?
No, I don't. So far as I know, I have never. I got ill at some point, and someone in my girlfriend's office had COVID, so I assume that might have been it. but it was so
Yeah.
mild that I'm not sure if it was or it wasn't. To be honest, it could have
Gotcha.
been. But yeah, did you treat yourself with Chinese medicine and stuff like that when you had it?
I did. I got really sick like right out of the gates.
Yeah,
I was super ill. Like it just knocked me out both
yeah,
times. Yeah.
yeah.
My second time was actually on my honeymoon. I
Oh no,
got
oh no. Yeah.
I got COVID on my wedding day. And then by that evening, I was so sick and I woke up the next day. And then we were camping. So we were staying in this little travel trailer and I was
Oh
just so
nice.
ill.
Yeah.
And so was my husband. And
Happy
it's,
honey.
in a certain way, we were like already like away from people. So that part was good.
Yeah.
But we went to like the natural hot springs
Are you,
here and
oh no, lovely. Are you going to redo it? Have like honeymoon take two to like make up for the COVID?
I think we're gonna have to. I mean, we're going to Mexico next month, but
Oh
my
nice.
son's coming, so that's not really
That's not really a honeymoon. No.
proper.
Yeah, agreed, agreed,
Yeah,
agreed. Um,
yeah.
yeah. I would hate to get COVID if I was doing it. Yeah, I don't think I've had it. My uncle, who I've done a lot of work for, he was one of the biggest, like out of all the people that I know, one of the biggest naysayers. Oh, COVID, it's not. Wasn't taking it serious. When he got it, he was like bedridden for weeks, which is pretty bad.
Wow.
Yeah,
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 yeah. It can be really, really bad for sure.
cool.
It's terrible.
So with you've got patients and stuff. What kind of illnesses is it that you see? Well, what could you give an example of the treatment that you might give to someone with a certain type of illness? Say someone had Crohn's disease or something like that.
Ooh, Crohn's is a very complicated one, right?
Yeah,
Because it's an autoimmune
yeah,
disease. So we would do acupuncture, diet therapy.
yeah.
We would do Chinese herbs would be the best because if somebody has Crohn's, they really need something every single day
Right.
to help shift things.
Yeah.
So Chinese medicine herbs in that case would be the best
Cool.
therapy, I would say. But also with Crohn's, I find there is like obviously a lot of dietary triggers.
Right.
So we would just look at the patient's constitution.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much you know about Chinese medicine, but like foods all have like a thermal quality to them. So they can be hot, they can be cold.
Yeah. It can be
So,
acid
things
forming,
like,
alkali forming, all these different things. Yeah.
yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like ginger and garlic and onions, things like that, are really common
Yeah.
for people to eat, but they're actually like super hot and spicy and they have like a really hot thermal nature. So sometimes those kinds of foods can really aggravate that kind of condition
Yeah.
where there's already inflammation in the gut. So we would ask like the patients all the different foods that they eat on a regular basis and what kind of like herbal teas do you drink
Yeah.
and how much coffee do you drink and how much alcohol do you
Yeah.
drink.
And how
So
do you have to like kind of look for? Because can you trust a patient to know the correlation between if they eat a certain thing, it inflames them or not? Do you have to rely a little bit on them to kind of pay attention to that stuff?
they often, before they come to the office, they're not aware of it, but then they'll come back for like their return visits and they'll be
Yeah.
like, oh my goodness, I was so aware of it this week. And so I feel like that's part of our job is to like teach people
Yeah.
and give them like that awareness so that they can go back and be like, oh, you're right. Like after I ate that ginger, I was really sweaty.
Yeah.
I felt hot.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And then people can like zoom in and kind of pay attention,
Yeah.
right? To these things are maybe Chinese medicine seems woo woo, but it's actually really common sense. Like if someone's like the body type who gets a red face and they're sweating all the time and they're always taking off clothes, that's somebody who has too much heat in their body. So we want to cool down that heat. So if that person's like drinking lots of coffee and eating lots of spicy foods and stuff, then that's going to aggravate whatever's inflammatory processes are in their
And
body.
there's people that have very radically different reactions to foods. Like I've got a friend and he can't eat chili. I love chili and spicy food, but he literally if he could end up in hospital from eating like too much chili. In fact, he did end up in hospital when he went and
Really?
visited Thailand. Yeah, because he'd had too much. And you think like I just kind of thought people that couldn't eat too much Chile were just pussies, you know. I didn't realise it. In all honesty, I thought, look, you need to build up some tolerance for some.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I suppose that leads on to another thing I
Oh.
wanted to ask. Actually, what are the dangers of Chinese medicine if you had a bad practitioner? So, what potential
Ah.
dangers? Yeah,
So, I have to be careful about this
yeah, for
because
sure.
the other day I was kind of like just looking for inspiration and I wanted to see um, Chinese medicine and acupuncture in the news right now, right?
Right.
So I type in like Chinese medicine news, acupuncture news. I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
see if there were any new studies, that sort of
Yeah,
stuff. And it was all like practitioners that lost their license and they're still treating patients and they're injuring them and they're doing all these bad things. And so that was all over the news. And I was like,
oh
wow,
wow.
like this is wild. So I would have to say that, like, trained for a trained professional, the side effects or like risks are super
Yeah,
low. But if you don't have proper training,
yeah,
then things like punctured lungs, infection,
yeah,
uh, you know,
yeah,
there's there's lots of potential side effects if somebody does not know what they're doing.
yeah. I mean, like it should be said as
Yeah.
well that it's no, this isn't like unique to Chinese medicine. Like Western medicine makes enough mess ups itself. There's some law being
Yeah.
passed at the moment called oh, I hope I haven't got this wrong. I think it's called Molly's Law in the UK. And this is basically when doctors and nurses kind of ignore, like, there's a law that they're trying to pass and they're implementing it across the hospitals. So that there was basically
Yeah.
this child, it's a sad story, and something was going on with him. I think his pancreas had inflamed or burst or something like that. And the parents could tell
Mm-hmm.
that he had got a lot worse and deteriorated. And they'd spoke out and reached out to staff and they just said, like, look, no. And they didn't prioritize it and he died, or she died, and
Oh.
which is awful. So now
No.
they're trying to pass this law to say,
Mm-hmm.
like, if the parents aren't happy with the decision and they can tell that something's gone on, that something's getting worse or whatever, that it has to be reviewed by someone else, like, which I think is a great idea. But obviously mistakes are made, you know, across the board in basically everything in life. I suppose human error is always going to be a thing.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great law. We should get that in
Yeah,
Canada
for sure.
because that's probably really common, right?
Yeah, and I mean it's not even
Yeah.
to like insult doctors either. I mean it's more to like think
Mm-hmm.
of the patient's parents as another resource you have in your busy day that you can rely on to say, like, look, something's gone on here, and just pay attention to it. I mean, like, because I'm
Yeah.
sure that most of it isn't bad actors. I'm sure there's some bad actors because of ego and god complex, just think like, no, shut up, I know better. But I think for the most part,
Mm-hmm.
probably not so much. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think that that's one thing, just to jump back to the COVID
yeah,
sort of epidemic first, for pandemic
hmm,
for a little second there. I think a lot of people were talking about doctors like they were all evil and out to get us, but I really actually don't think
no,
that's
not
true,
at all.
because what I actually did see was like a lot of doctors like working longer
Yeah,
hours, risking their own health, like,
yeah.
and so I think you're right in the sense that they are really good people who went to school for a really long
Yeah,
time
yeah.
to help others,
Yeah,
right?
they know their shit. They're specialists.
Yeah.
I mean, in
Yeah.
England, it was quite inspirational. Every Thursday, the nation would have an applause for our NHS, our National Health Service. So you just hear it. I remember I
Nice.
forgot that it was going to happen, and I was in a flat with my girlfriend at the time, and I just suddenly heard this. Couldn't tell what it was. I couldn't tell if it sounded like military or something going on. I opened the door, and it was just a rumble of applause across the whole country. Was just
Mm.
applauding our National Health Service, and it was actually quite emotional. But then they did it every week, and it kind
No.
of got old. But yeah, yeah, especially when a year later they're like giving nurses like a pay rise enough to afford a bag of chips a month. I just thought, well, so
Oh.
much for that. Then we got,
Yeah.
yeah, which is pretty awful. But yeah, COVID. I mean, is there still like laws, remnants of laws, vestiges of restraint from the COVID situation that inhibits your practice in any way?
Uh, Not really. I still send out like a COVID screening, it's called,
Yeah,
for patients to fill out the day of the appointment just to say that they're not having any COVID symptoms. So
okay,
I still do that, and I still have the occasional patient that would ask me to wear a mask, and of course, I'm super accommodating
Yeah.
if someone's feeling uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But other than that, not really. You know, it has like rubbed off in a really positive way because there were some practices that we did before that weren't like unhygienic,
Yeah.
but they were just a little weird. Like, here's an example. So, have you heard of cupping before?
No, well, I don't think so.
Have you seen the little like cut marks on people's backs, like the little circular bruises that look like little pizzas?
Yeah,
You seen
I think
that?
so.
Okay. Okay, so what we do for that is called fire cupping. We take this giant torch and we catch it on fire, and then we put
Oh,
the torch into
and
the
this is like it makes negative pressure and sucks it up.
yeah.
Yeah, I have
Yeah,
seen it.
yeah,
Yeah, I
exactly.
have seen it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So it sucks the pressure out and then you put it on the skin.
yeah,
Well, my very first time after COVID, I went into clinic and I had my, my big mask. I had like a face shield
yeah,
on and I hadn't cupped anyone since I've been wearing all this stuff. So I go to light this flame
yeah,
and put this cup on the person and I usually blow it out,
yeah.
right? But I was like, oh my gosh, I'm wearing a mask and a face screen, and I ran down the hall with this like giant torch in my hand. I had to like run past my secretary and everything,
Yeah.
and it was just pretty funny. And I was like, wow, like usually I would blow this torch
Yeah.
out, which yeah, like I don't do that anymore. I
No.
found other ways to get the torch out other than like blowing my spit. Like
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it did kind of highlight, I think as well, just like other stuff. Like if you're feeling sick yourself, it might be a better idea to wear a mask if you're going to go on the train or go and see grandma and stuff like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, like I
For
I did
sure.
feel kind of bad that, doctors kind of got a bit of stick and a lot of skepticism since the whole COVID thing. But I suppose just science and medical advisors to the government and stuff like that. But then they didn't do themselves many favors by talking quite a lot of bullshit and backtracking. But I feel some sympathy for those guys because,
Yeah.
I wouldn't like to be ever been in their position trying to deal with it.
For sure. And I feel like hygiene wise, I do think that COVID had a positive impact.
Yeah,
I think it was really good because it made us all up our game, and we've already like implemented a bunch of new hygiene practices and I just kept them, right?
as
So
filthy as this is
I
going to
think I
sound,
think that's good.
this is going to sound terrible, but don't you think maybe exposure to germs and stuff might be a good thing to like build up our immune system though?
I do agree. Like, I think yes. But I think that when someone's coming to a clinic setting, that's not really the time to
Blow
like
spit on them.
test that. Does that make
Yeah, for
sense?
sure. For sure.
Like, I would just feel really bad if like an elderly lady came to my clinic and I gave her any illness, right?
Yeah.
So I don't want to be the person to expose. So I think you're right. I think that we live in a really like overly clean, sterile world now.
Yeah. Which has only been
Yeah,
enhanced
like
since COVID, right? Because as much as we've like improved on hygiene, I kind of feel like that's more like it was more of an abstract ideal that we have for society, where we've kind of you know come up with this idea that it's good for everything to be sterile and clean, and really we're not particularly sterile. The world doesn't work like that. I thought the mask thing was kind of crazy myself because I've worked a lot in the asbestos industry, and
yeah.
the masks that the guys have to wear that go in to deal with asbestos, you only protect them for like 3 fibers per cubic centimeter or something. And this is like, they're microscopic, but nowhere near as microscopic as a virus. So it's like, yeah, it wasn't going to do a lot. I mean, yeah, there was crazy stuff going on back then. I mean, do you remember some of the people with the crazy headgear that they were wearing in shops and stuff? Did you ever see those? I thought that was crazy. People on
Yeah.
TV like hugging through like plastic sheets and stuff like that. I quite
Yeah.
like the idea that I quite like some of the hygiene stuff, but then I do wonder if overall is it a contributor to that's going to be beneficial to public health, or if we're too like sterile in society, will it kind of just actually end up making us have weaker immune systems, and then it hit us harder when we are exposed to germs, because we're going to still send kids to school and they're still going to have to go on the train and in the workplace and public toilets. And washing your hands is always a great idea. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
a. I wonder how many families are kind of overdoing it, maybe in the home, perhaps.
Hmm. Yeah, I could see that for sure.
Yeah, but then, but
Yeah.
the truth be told, if I'm going to go and see a clinician of any kind, I'd rather it be as sterile, as clean, as all of that stuff as possible. I don't think that's that. You're right. It's not the setting where you should get your exposure to germs. You should probably get it being a snotty nosed kid in a playground, playing rough and tumble with the other lads.
Totally.
Yeah,
Yeah. And I mean, like, we're dealing with like needles, right? We're dealing with blood. We're dealing with
yeah,
like,
yeah. Because I've heard horror stories, right, where you've got like people with, I suppose when there was the Ebola scare and stuff, I read something about the dangers of acupuncture, that someone could get, Ebola from having acupuncture or something like that.
really? Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
well,
I've never heard that.
no, well, someone got it apparently from having. You go to like fish pools, put your feet in fish, and they like call it eat away
Yeah.
at the dead skin, and someone had caught it through that, and then it was yeah,
Oh.
which is wild
Oh,
shit.
yeah, yeah.
It's wild stuff. Yeah,
You know what? I want to try that so
yeah,
bad.
I've never done it.
The fish
Yeah, I want
pedicures.
one.
Like, I just think it sounds so weird to have like fish eating like your dead skin.
Yeah.
But it's an experience that I want to have at least once in my
Yeah,
life.
for sure.
Like, I just want like new fish though. Like, I don't want the old.
Yeah.
Give me some newborn fish, newly
I
hatched.
tell you what, I don't want. I don't want to see like whoever it was who was in there last.
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely don't want to see that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what kind of what kind of movements are going on at the moment? What sort of efforts are there to kind of increase public awareness of the stuff that you do?
Well, in Nelson, it's really easy because people are constantly posting on social media, and it's just really huge. Like everywhere you go in this town, there's just health food stores everywhere. There's healthy yoga studios. There's Pilates studios. There's like more acupuncturists in this town
Yeah.
than anywhere else.
Do you feel like maybe that's the cultural influence has had an impact on your choice to end up in this industry then?
Cultural?
So, like, if there's a lot, if your local culture has a lot of that sort of stuff going on, do you think that kind of is part of it? Do you think maybe because where I am, I don't see so
Yeah.
much of it, but I'm not sure if it's one of those things that I don't notice it so much because I'm not in that field. Maybe there's more there than I realise.
Yeah, I think I was into the health scene before I moved to this small town that I'm in now.
Right.
I think it was just because as a teenager, when I started to be a personal trainer, I I saw how like health impacted my own life,
Mm-hmm.
and it just really changed who I was, and I wanted that for other people.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
So, how many patients can you fit into as like have as a regular? How often do you see a patient? I suppose.
Yeah, so usually like once a week would be a good amount of time
Yeah.
for dealing with something chronic. If it's like an acute thing, I might want to see them a couple times a week.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I'll see quite a few patients in a day, probably like 9 patients a
Oh
day,
wow,
5 days a week.
quite a lot.
Yeah.
Do you actually do the
Yeah.
acupuncture? So you actually put needles in people's backs yourself, right?
Everywhere.
Everywhere, in the face.
We even like needle. Yeah, so we actually needle behind the eyeball. There's a point
wow.
right here, and it goes like behind the eyeball, and it stimulates the optic nerve. I'm scaring you now.
No,
No one,
as scary.
no one who's listening to this is coming for
No,
acupuncture.
as scary as it sounds, do you know what? That actually sounds appealing to me because I get a lot of headaches and my eyes ache sometimes.
Oh.
If I've done a lot of reading and stuff like that, I just think
Yeah.
I rub my eyes sometimes. I've never had acupuncture. I like the idea of it, but yeah, I don't know, for whatever reason I've never got round to it. And I suppose I've never really.
It's so good for headaches.
Yeah?
It's so good for headaches. So yeah, we needle all these different points on the head, but for headaches, we actually needle a lot of points on the hands and feet too.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
So is that sort of like
Yeah.
a reflexology thing that like the interrelationship between different parts of the body? So something can affect. Is that like part of the thesis? Like it's part of acupuncture where you put the needles is somewhere that's connected to other parts of the body and stuff like that?
Absolutely. I mean, we don't call it reflexology. We would say that it's a meridian thing, right?
Yeah, of
So,
course, yeah.
like for example, if you're having jaw pain, right, we can needle like this point here because the meridian actually goes right up and follows. So we can have an influence on the jaw by needling anywhere along that meridian.
Right. So
And there's like specific points too that have been documented to have like more of an effect than others.
right, okay. It's
Yeah.
interesting that there is like different cultures have come up with the same thing, and I think actually, if anything, it kind of the same way. Like if I'm going to check them, like two different media stories, one from a right wing and one from a left wing, like the bits that they both agree on, I can kind of assume are probably true. You know, there's some truth to them at least, whereas the rest of
Oh
it might be
yeah.
some. But like meridians, and then you've got like chakras in like Eastern, like other parts of the world have come up with, and then reflexology. It's like I don't understand why there's the stigma around Chinese medicine, especially when we look up to their culture and their ancient wisdom in their culture in so many other ways. And like I don't know,
Yeah.
it's like if people are pretty industrious, they've got such an ancient culture, and if they people that have spent thousands of years like focusing on something that is industrious and capable as the Chinese were and are, it's kind of surprising that people don't hold more stock in it. But then I suppose maybe it's a bit of association with some of the other stuff like astrology and all this. I think sometimes people have a bunch of different things conflated in their head about it.
Yeah, I don't think they realize how many ancient texts there actually are in Chinese medicine.
Yeah,
And it's very extensive and it's very old.
yeah,
And the philosophy remains the same, which is that we are part of
yeah,
nature. Whether or not we try to live indoors with heat and we become a little bit soft as humans,
yeah,
like you
yeah,
mentioned, we try to be so clean
yeah,
and warm. But even still, we're still really affected by our environment. We're affected by like rain. We're affected by sun. We're affected by heat and cold.
yeah,
And and even as the years go by, those things are never going to change. We're always going to be affected by our environment.
yeah, for sure. We're going to be infected, and
Yeah.
more of it than you think. Like even like stuff like crime rates go through the roof on a full moon and stuff. It's like there's a lot more things
Yeah,
having an effect on you than you really realize. And
for sure.
yeah,
And patients come in my clinic and they're like, oh yeah, the weather just changed. It's rainy and my arthritis is flaring up.
yeah,
And literally every patient that I see that day will say the same
yeah. It's
thing.
not just bullshit. Like for real. Like I've got family members who can kind of tell when it's going to rain because they got they can sense it in their bones or whatever. My mum has like
Yeah.
osteoarthritis and fibromyalgia and a few
Oh,
things. So yeah, there's been quite a lot of illness in the family. I had a good pal of mine just had cancer last year, but they managed to get it out, thank God. But
oh.
yeah, they had to cut out a part of his throat and his lymph nodes and all this. He had throat cancer, some tumor in there.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's pretty big. They cut him from under the armpit to like his spine on the
Yeah.
back, removed a rib, had to collapse a lung, cut out all of his lymph nodes. It was pretty wild stuff, yeah. And
Wow.
chemo. And the chemo, like, made him
Yeah.
really ill. I think when he first had it, he thought it wasn't so bad, but then as he got more of the chemo, like those drugs, obviously, like they save lives. So in extreme circumstances, they're obviously handy, but toxic as fuck as well.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's actually what I wrote my thesis on in Chinese medicine school was using Chinese medicine herbs
yeah,
to mitigate the effects of chemo, like the side effects, because people would get like nauseous or they'd get hot flashes or they get,
yeah,
really fatigued. And so I worked with giving them Chinese medicine herbs
yeah,
to help with all those things. And it was super
yeah,
successful. It really made their like chemotherapy journey
yeah.
better and more comfortable for them.
Is there So this is with. Is there a dark side to this as well? I remember reading something that was pretty fucked up in a paper once, and it was about. I suppose for stem cells and stuff like that, like fetuses being like powdered baby fetuses in pills and all of this is that like that's kind of lumped in with Chinese medicine? Was there dark practices like that went on?
We don't use that in our medicine, but we use some really weird stuff.
What's the weird stuff?
The weirdest medicine. Do you want to hear our weirdest one? Okay.
Let's do it.
It's a 8-year-old boy urine.
What? Fuck hell.
They have to be 8, and it has to be a male.
What do you use that for?
They actually burn it, and they use it to stop bleeding.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
They burn it. This is getting better as it goes, to be fair.
Yeah. So they dry it. They like dehydrate it, and then they char it.
Yeah.
And then it gets used to stop bleeding.
Cool. At least it's not, as long as they're not drinking it, I'm all right. Or washing it. Yeah.
It's wild, hey?
Yeah. What are some of the nicer ones, though?
Yeah.
Like, I get a bit of psoriasis. What would you say would be good for psoriasis?
Well, we have formulas that are really good for that. Yeah. So, if you want to get into a little bit of Chinese medicine theory, this is going to sound a little interesting, but the outside influences that are related to psoriasis usually in a lot of cases are heat and dampness.
Okay.
And so we would use like herbal formulas to help dispel and get rid of those sorts of pathogens, and also something called wind, which is like, do you get seasonal allergies as well?
No, not really.
No? Okay.
No, I don't have any allergies, but if it's cold weather in the winter, I notice that it gets worse. In the summer, it seems to get better. Like if I get a lot of sun exposure, it seems to get better.
Okay, it might be a dryness type then.
Yeah, I think maybe. I know if I don't drink alcohol or smoke at all, it gets pretty better as well. So, you know.
Yeah, so those things are really like hot in nature, so those can cause heat in the body, and heat can dry out bodily fluids. Mm-hmm. So then you can get that dryness type of psoriasis. We actually use like topical medicine as well for psoriasis, so we'll give people like ointments and stuff. Yeah. Or like baths, you know, add herbs to baths.
Yeah, this is one of the things I got into because I learned that just having a bath is a dry bath. And this is obviously from the dermatology department at the hospital rather than anything more holistic than that. But they did advise, like, you know, use salts, oils, all that sort of stuff. So like whenever I have a bath now, I like to have salts and oils and stuff like that in there. I wouldn't mind incorporating some Chinese medicinal herbs. To be fair, I'll have a look into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why not?
Do you get itchy?
If on a patch where I have psoriasis can get itchy, but oftentimes no.
Yeah.
Like sometimes it will just be like if I get a cut or something like that, it's like the skin cells just keep producing and it will form there. Like, so it's kind of been triggered, if you like, by a trauma on the skin or something like that sometimes, often. So I work very hands-on and stuff. So, yeah. But, I think, in all honesty, I know that I make it worse myself when I'm just eating the wrong things, drinking too much, smoking too many cigarettes and whatnot. So, I definitely don't. I'm not exactly the world's healthiest man in the world. I keep myself in good shape. I like to go to the gym. I like to work out. I do physical work, so I'm in shape. But I smoke quite a lot. I drink quite a lot, and I eat whatever the fuck I want. So
What kind of work do you do?
I'm self-employed and work in the asbestos removal industry and demolition industry.
Oh, that's what you're saying.
So lots of work. Lots of moving heavy stuff around and stuff like that. Yeah.
Well, so psoriasis in Chinese medicine can be related to the lungs and the liver as far as organs go. It doesn't mean that you have like pathology in those areas according to Western medicine, but those are two organs that are really common to have. So from breathing in the asbestos, perhaps there's been some like damaging there to your lungs.
And that's like a meridian? Is that right? They're connected.
Yeah, so that's also complicated to answer, but there's two ways of looking at an organ. You could look at the organ's meridian, so the lung has a
Yeah.
meridian, or you could look at the lungs as the organ itself. That the lungs are in the chest, so we
Right.
would say, okay, it's the organ that's affected. Whereas, like if someone's having arm pain and it's all along like the lung meridian, then
Yeah.
we'll say, okay, that's more of like a lung meridian issue.
Okay. Cool.
Does that make
It
sense?
makes a bit of sense.
Like in
Yeah.
your case, I would say that like it's affecting the lungs specifically, like the organs, because you're taking the air and the asbestos potentially like
Yeah.
into your lungs. And I don't know what amount you're absorbing.
Not very much. Like I'm not
Okay,
crazily exposed to it, to be fair. But
that's good.
yeah. Hopefully I'll be all right. Anyway, I think yeah, I think I can keep it regulated as long as I just keep diet and stuff. I'm all right at the moment, but it has a flare up every now
That's
and then.
good.
I had it really bad at one point, which was a nightmare. But yeah, I was going to ask something. I forgot what it was now. I've been thrown off by the thoughts of psoriasis. Yeah.
You know what else is really good for psoriasis? I'll do what's called surround needling. So with acupuncture, there'll be like a patch of psoriasis, and I'll just go all the way around the psoriasis with needles,
Yeah.
and it works so well. It's really good.
Just one of those don't try this at home things.
Yeah,
So I can always do it.
yeah, you might want to try that at home.
Yeah. How widely is Chinese traditional medicine still practiced in China? How much is a Western style medicine and the industry conquered and dominated over there as well?
Yeah, in hospitals, it's mostly Western medicine now. I would say in people's households, they're still practicing the ancient Chinese medicine
Yeah.
type of things. In the hospitals, I will add though that they do a lot of herbal usage as well. Like they'll do like herbal IVs for different things. So they're still using it. They're still using acupuncture in the hospitals, but just not like as much as they used to.
Yeah.
And but of course, it's still like a predominant form of medicine
Yeah. Cool.
for
Have you
prevention.
ever
And
been to China?
yeah.
Are you drawn to China? Like, could you have? Is it just Chinese medicine, or has that led you to have more wider interest in the culture and history of China?
Well, we had to do history classes about China, and I was always super, super interested in
Yeah.
learning. Um, I didn't go to China because my son was he was really young when I was studying Chinese medicine,
Yeah.
and I really didn't want to bring him there.
Yeah.
There were other like places that I would have like preferred to travel with
Yeah.
him, and just being a parent, it just wasn't my time. I actually had a dream that I went to China recently.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I'd like to go there one day, but I just have so many other areas on my hit
On the hit
list.
list, yeah. Which ones? I know you said
Yeah.
you're going to Mexico soon.
Yeah, like in 3 weeks.
Oh wow. Where are you going? Cancun?
We're going just near Cancun. We're going to Tulum.
Yeah.
I don't know how to say that properly.
I don't
Tulum.
know either.
Um, my son's obsessed with spearfishing, so I hired us a spearfishing charter
Oh cool.
and a guide. So we're going to go spearfishing, and we're going to go deep sea ocean fishing and check out the cenotes.
Oh cool.
So
Good luck with
yeah.
the spearfishing. I think I'd like to do a bit of spearfishing myself, to be fair. That sounds cool.
Oh, yeah?
That sounds cool, yeah. For sure.
Have you seen people do it before? It's pretty wild.
I've seen some proper wild ones. I've seen guys that go out with spears and go and get whales. Like there's some TV show, yeah, proper crazy. They go out in like a little wooden boat and they'll just go and fucking get like a big sperm whale with spears, like absolutely radical. They'll go down, they've got like
That's
spears with
amazing.
like a hook on it, and they'll just wedge it. They go and get them with multiple ones, and they've got ropes on it, and yeah.
Oh wow.
But yeah, when I thought of spearfishing when you first said it, I was thinking more like that film Castaway with Tom Hanks, like trying to.
Oh, yeah. I love that movie.
That was a good movie, yeah, pretty good.
Yeah.
What do you think of?
What's his volleyball's name again?
Wilson.
What's his little?
Wilson.
Oh yeah, Wilson, of course.
Yeah, it will be. yeah, Wilson. Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, what's that?
Sue's so good.
Yeah, it was a brilliant film. What do you think of Justin Trudeau?
Oh,
can we go there? You don't have to go there. But I just thought I'd ask the question.
well, I'm a hunter, so it's tough for me
Hmm.
because I just think that like some of the new gun laws that he's coming out with are
Yeah,
interesting, trying to ban like semi-automatics and stuff, which I think is a humane thing to hunt with. For
yeah,
example,
for sure.
with when my son is hunting and he doesn't kill the animal for a shot, I teach him that don't take the shot
Unless
unless
you're,
you're going to kill the
yeah,
animal.
you don't want it to
But,
suffer. Yeah.
you know, but if you don't, it's pretty awesome to have a semi-auto and be able to take that second shot right
Hell
away.
yeah. Yeah.
Uh, but he's like working on banning them and all this stuff, right? So
Yeah.
it's kind of tough because as a hunter, yeah,
Yeah. It seems like
I
fucking to be a little bit far gone for me on the too much of the woke side of things. We've got the opposite problem over here. We've had like conservative government for like well over a decade now. So like I
oh,
think we could do with
okay,
probably mixing it up and having something a bit more centre left come in for a little while, just to slow things down from going too far one way or the other. But yeah, Trudeau,
yeah,
I don't have anything good to say about him. I just thought I'd ask the question.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's cool.
Well,
It's cool that you hunt though.
there's other things I could
Oh,
say
go on.
about
I'm sure there are. What kind of stuff do you hunt? Would you do you hunt deer or?
deer and moose, elk, mountain
I've
goat,
never had elk.
mountain sheep.
I've had goat. I've had yeah. I'd love to go and hunt, but well, there's not a lot to do over in England. It's not quite the same. So we have like really strict gun laws here. We're not allowed guns unless
Oh,
no, you can't. You have to have access to private land on which you can hunt. You have to keep it in a certain case. Like people don't just have guns like they do in America or Canada. It's really tough over here. Yeah. Which
oh,
for
wow.
me, having been raised on and off in America with a dad who lives in America, I lived in Indiana twice, California once,
Yeah.
and Florida once. I actually believe in the right to bear arms personally, and I believe actually thinking of hunting. I think it's actually almost like I don't want to sound too crazy here, but like almost a spiritual thing in a sense that it's like something our ancestors have done since the dawn of time. And I think that if
Yeah.
you go back 99.9% of your ancestors probably turn in their grave to think that we'd have a society that was such a core and integral part of human evolution and society that, to replace it with supermarkets and all of this stuff is kind of, we've lost something there. And the connection to it is it's not about like what some vegan activists might think is some cruel, evil practice of killing animals. It's like, no, it's the ultimate respect. You choose an animal of a certain age that's beyond breeding age, whatever, and only take as much as what's
Mhm.
replaceable or invasive species and stuff like that. They have to be kept in check as well. And then, like, it's an absolute respect for the animal that you're going to use that animal to feed your children, and a part of that animal will become your
Yeah.
part of your children and stuff like that. So I don't, I'm definitely not a vegan, but I definitely feel like, yeah, yeah,
Obviously, I'm not either. I mean,
yeah,
I haven't bought meat or fish from the grocery store in forever. And, we go on like an annual ocean fishing trip and fill the freezer. And then we do a lot of hunting. So we have like all different kinds of meat in the freezer. And
yeah.
it's really great because we've gotten super into finding new ways to use different parts of the animal that people like would normally throw
Right,
away.
okay.
And we've been watching the television show Alone. Have you
I
seen
haven't,
that?
no.
Oh my, you would love it. It's
Yeah,
so good. But you have to watch the Canadian North American one.
okay.
They go up into like these really remote areas and it's legit. Like there's no camera people there and these people get dropped off completely alone and they're staying out there for like 100 days at a time.
Yeah.
And when they harvest animals, like they have no guns, they only have like bow and arrow
Oh,
and
cool.
they have to like make a gill net. And when they harvest the animal, like some of the things that they're doing, like this one guy harvests some muskox and he used the ball sack
Yeah.
he made a little purse out of
Oh,
it.
cool.
And then he put the brains in there and he used the brains to waterproof like all of his
Oh,
clothes.
cool. Wow. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
interesting
So
stuff. Yeah.
yeah. So I was like, I want to do that. I want a testicle purse.
I'm not sure if I want the testicle purse, but I suppose it's better than throwing it in the bin.
Yeah, exactly.
Testicle burst. Do you have a testicle burst yet?
I haven't got one yet. I mean, because the only animal that we harvested since I watched that episode was a deer, and it was not like a big buck, so it didn't have a pouch worth keeping, you know?
Yeah. Fair play. Fair
Yeah.
play.
Don't tell the buck I said
No,
that.
I won't tell him. Yeah, but I take it you eat the organs and all that sort of stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The organs are like the most healthy part,
Yeah, the
right?
liver, the heart, because like a lot of people
Yeah.
grossed out by it, but unfortunately, like I'm well jealous. I wish that I could say that I haven't bought meat from the supermarkets in ages, but I'm a busy man and there's nothing around locally for me to hunt and gun laws and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I go to the butchers. There's a halal butcher actually that I go to most regularly, and they have all the organs, and I'll buy liver and I'll buy hearts. But so many people you find are like grossed out by it. They're like
Oh,
hearts. Yeah, there's a lot of people that grossed out by it, especially girls actually. But
really?
so like maybe if I can cut the heart up into pieces, But my girlfriend that I'm with now, she's absolutely fine with it. She loves it. So yeah.
Oh,
So
nice.
I
That's good.
used to like to have fish at least once a week, have organs at least once a week, and
Perfect.
yeah, and I did used to have one vegetarian dish per week, or wanted to, but I
Yeah.
never ever stuck to that. I've tried other things as well.
You know
Tried the
what?
keto, tried the carnivore diet, but I just broke on it because I fucking love bread and and beer and stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah.
That's fair. You know what is so good actually? We harvested an elk, and we took the heart and we cut it really thinly, and then we smoked it
Oh wow.
in the smoker. And I went to work at my physio clinic, and I brought some deer jerky,
Yeah.
venison jerky, and I brought some elk heart.
Venison's one
And
of
I
my
made
favourites.
everyone try it, and I didn't tell them what it was.
Yeah.
And everyone was like, this is the best.
Yeah.
And they all preferred the elk heart. And it was like interesting to see like when people don't know what it is,
Yeah.
and you prepare it really well, and like we marinated it forever before we put it on the smoker, and
Yeah.
it was super delicious. It was so good.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to be said for that as well, like how people can be psychologically impacted by knowing something in advance. There's even studies done like in psychology for like the language you'll use to describe like how a car hit into another one, like at what speed did it impact or at what speed it smashed into the back, and the emotive language can like make people's guess differ quite substantially, which is interesting. So you tell people that it's heart, they're the kind of people that are grossed out by it. I've got a sister who was like vegetarian. She was just one of those natural born vegetarians. Like ever since a child, if you told her it was meat, she wouldn't eat it.
Really?
So my mum would have to deceive her and say, "Oh, this is what it is," and all she'd ever eat is like a bit of chicken or whatever. But she's come around. She's got like 3 sons now, and I think she's realised you've got to eat some meat.
Yeah. I mean, I tried to be a vegetarian for a little while, but I didn't last very long.
No.
Because I just feel like meat like supercharges me, especially like wild meat. That was before I was a hunter, by the way. But wild meat like makes me feel like a superhero. Like I just get so charged from the protein and the health.
There's so much else in there as well. It's not just protein in meat, is it?
Oh no, not at all. No.
Is there a sort of dietary aspect to what you do with is that incorporated into it somehow?
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a huge component of that. I always ask people what their diet's like, because that can be like the root cause of all evils, so to speak.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Do you I don't know. I suppose maybe it's more part of the culture over there. Do you ever give people advice to like maybe kind of try and incorporate like organs and stuff, liver and stuff into their diet?
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, my husband is pretty obsessed about organ meat. He eats them almost every day.
Oh, wow. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I really believe in it. And when I don't have like a fresh kill to like harvest from,
Yeah.
or if we don't have any more in the freezer, like I do take like a desiccated liver tablet,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I find that that's like a really good
Yeah.
alternative.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, and I've seen like how much energy it gives me and just
Yeah, it's like
all the
it's
minerals and stuff.
not even. I can't think of any way that anyone could credibly even suggest that it's not the case. Like, there's so much goodness that you can get out of like liver that you don't really get anywhere else. Even off the meat, the organs have so many different things. I've watched like a bunch of podcasts from people that talk about this stuff, about like organs and meat and stuff, and it's pretty
Hmm.
wild the amount of like health benefits and the amount of different B vitamins and stuff that it does exist in there. And even like
Yeah.
just stuff in the animal kingdom, like when like we've known this almost since we were hunter gatherers, maybe even before, because even wolves, like when wolves make the kill, like the leader of the pack gets the liver first, like he gets to, do you know, that's cool as fuck. It's like if we've already,
That is so
yeah,
true.
we've known
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
since before we'd evolved past the point of dogs. Do you know what I mean? I just think that's,
Yeah.
yeah. So, and I think that actually speaks as well to some of the ideas of the ancient wisdom that's there in Chinese medicine and stuff. You think like when people think like woo woo science or whatever it is they want to say, right? Saying like, but you
Yeah.
think the people we came from hunter gatherers to an to a stone age to an iron age. We come, but we the amount of genius it took, and over the course of thousands and thousands of years, you think these people like are fucking stupid. You don't think we're a little bit stupid and naive now with our Western one in to contrast as much like because I to me it seems obvious. It's like, look, man, we've gone way too far one way and we are completely ignoring like massive parts of this puzzle. Like it just doesn't even make any sense to me why there isn't a better integration between ancient and traditional medicine techniques, and not just from China, but like maybe they're the best, but I don't know. It's like there's probably a lot of traditions that we've lost, and like we've lost a lot of knowledge as it is with the burning of the libraries of Alexandria, like with world history and stuff. But who knows how much medicine has been lost, and who knows? Yeah, I would like to see a better integration with it, like holistic therapies of all sorts. Yeah, that's my rant over anyway.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's so much that we can learn.
Yeah,
There's just so much to, like, even now, like when I harvest fish, like I'll boil up the carcass and the head and I'll make like fish broth,
yeah, and stock and stuff
and
like that.
that is like so nutritious, and like you said, like that's what our ancestors would have done,
Yeah, we
but most
evolved
people
doing
just
that.
throw that in the garbage, and
Yeah,
it's a shame because
yeah.
it's like a superfood.
Literally, like we seem to have got a lot of stuff well wrong. So it's like we'll peel the skins off of fruits and the piths off them and of vegetables and throw them away. We'll boil them and throw the water that we boiled them away instead of using it for the gravy. And it's just kind of like you just want to just denutritionalize all of your food. What's the point? And
Yeah,
like, you know, the whole vegan argument or vegetarian argument, it's like we fucking evolved eating meat. I just kind of like I even had more
absolutely.
radical view on it before as well, and thought like, you know, you have plant life, then you have like bovine animals that eat the plant life, and then you have like intelligent predators that eat the bovine life that eats the plant life. You know, and I think like, you know, maybe if too many
Yeah,
generations of vegans evolve, they'll evolve into prey and bovine animals.
absolutely.
If I
Yeah.
was going to be a cannibal, I'd eat a vegan. I don't mean that. I'm not.
That's
I'm not.
hilarious.
Yeah. Um, anyways, any final thoughts or things you have to say to people that may or may not have ever heard of osteopathy and Chinese medicine to kind of like take us out here? Have you got kind of like a summary of the message you want to get across while you come and do things like podcasts?
Yeah, I just think that I would love if people would come to see me, before things became so critical, and, to use it as, yes, I can treat any illness basically, but it's better if people can come to see their Chinese medicine practitioner, acupuncturist before they're symptomatic, and just
Yeah.
just to see like what their constitution is, because nobody's perfect and everyone's going to have a constitutional weakness.
Yeah.
And we can assess that from a Chinese medicine standpoint and get people really set up so that their future is healthy.
Yeah, I mean, invest in yourself. And, you know, rather than being too skeptical all the time, actually take the time to acknowledge that thousands of years of extremely intelligent, industrious people have taken the time to develop a system of medicine that is there for people to use. And you can proactively actually invest in your own health and go and look into these things just to give yourself the best chances going forward. I mean, I think that's a great message, and I think more people should do it, including myself, because I have to confess, you know, I'm more likely to be driving around somewhere or doing whatever I'm doing. You know, I definitely haven't put the proactive work into going and actually get proper advice from professionals, trained, accredited practitioners to try and help prevent illness. Like, I typically don't see doctors until I feel like I'm on death's door. So yeah, but that doesn't happen often, and I feel like I'm healthy. But then I'm getting to that age now. I'm 35. I've got an 11-year-old son, and I feel like I need to start thinking about it more seriously. There's more to life than going down the gym and building muscle. We should all probably look at our bodies holistically. You know, seek people like yourself, and just maximize the probability of having a longevity and healthy future.
For sure. Yeah. And I think that like awareness is that first piece, right? Where we can't really change something unless we're aware that there's a problem to begin with, right?
Yeah.
So we're all kind of constantly looking at ourselves and gaining awareness. And from then we can make those decisions. Yeah. So now you're aware of it, or
I'm just that. I think people need to kind of get it in their heads as well. You're aware it's going to happen at some point. Health is going to deteriorate. There's going to be problems that will come at some point. So you may as well be proactive and do something about it now. Anyways, absolutely. I'm super glad that you would come on and speak to me and appreciate it. I think it's a cool topic. You're a great person. I've enjoyed this. Do you want to tell people where they can find you, just in case?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for hosting. Yeah, it's really great that we put this together, and I've super enjoyed talking to you too.
Sweet.
That was So my website is www.acunelson.com, and we have a podcast as well. It's called Healthful.
Yep.
And it's on Apple and Spotify and many other platforms.
All of the platforms.
And I'm doing that with my.
Yeah.
Pardon me?
I said it's on everything, folks. I've seen it.
Yeah.
Given her a 5-star review. I follow her. Great content.
Thank you so much.
No worries.
Have a great day.
You too. Thank you for doing this. Bye-bye.
Thank you.